everybody, and if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I like to do videos about houseplants, especially tropical houseplants, because those are the ones that I collect. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for your support, and sorry it's been so long. A lot of the reason why I haven't been creating videos is actually going to be covered in this one, because this video is about how I neglected my plants for probably the past 2 months at this point. Yeah, it's been about 2 months. And I want to show you all what it's like to see my plants after, I did water them. They aren't fully neglected, but I really didn't take care of them very well. I barely watered them, really just so that they wouldn't all die. They're not all alive at this point, but I'll show you that in a little bit. So I've noticed that I go into these waves of buying a bunch of new plants, getting really excited about it, and then remembering how much additional work that's going to take for me to maintain them, and then sort of struggle bussing to maintain all the plants until I get into a good rhythm, and then I feel really confident again, and then I buy more plants, and then we just keep repeating the cycle. Unfortunately, this time around though, it wasn't because I bought so many new plants and I couldn't handle it. It was more so that I just was really exhausted from my day job. I'm actually a startup founder, and that consumes most of my hours, and so plants are definitely a hobby for me and kind of a mental break from having to do the rest of my work. But recently it's been feeling more like a chore rather than something that's an enjoyable hobby. And as a result, I did not really take care of my plants that well. I watered them maybe once every 2 weeks over the past few months. And I noticed obviously there were a lot of leaves that have been drooping and a lot of leaves that have been browning. But I mostly wanted to film this video to let you all know that it's okay if you get into this kind of gloomy stage as a plant parent. With that, let me show you what my plants look like right now, and some of them have been watered a bit more regularly than others. I mostly actually eyeball, when I'm in this like maintenance state, I like to walk around and eyeball which plants seem to be doing worse, and I'll just water those quickly so that they don't go even worse. And I'll show you what I mean in a little bit, but most plants will actually give you signs that it's not doing that well. Some of them are more dramatic than others, but for the most part, all of us tend to overwater our plants, and as a result, there is a pretty good amount of moisture left in the soil if you're doing like a weekly cadence. That gives you a little bit of buffer, which is great, but if you haven't been watering your plants in a while, and if you're like me and I haven't watered most of these plants in probably over 2 weeks, you want to give them a good watering to really fill up the soil and get it moist again, because all the soil is going to be pretty hydrophobic at this point because it's really dry. So it's going to just take a little bit more time for it to absorb all the moisture and then retain it, so that if you need to go 2 weeks again with that watering, or 3 weeks, or whatever that duration ends up being, it's more likely that your plant will stay healthy. So we're gonna just start here where I started filming, and as you can see, I have some air plants. This is looking a little bit dry, but it's not too bad. Kind of always looks like this actually, and it has been growing bigger, so I know it's doing all right, but I'm just gonna spray those. There's 3 of them here. I have this pothos that I've been propagating. You'll see that it's quite droopy, and that's what this one looks like above as well. It is looking very droopy. But thankfully these are very sturdy, and none of the leaves are really yellowing too much, so I'm sure if I give this a good dunk, it'll do great in another day. Okay, so next to me are some of my more rare tropical plants. I put most of the rare ones actually in the other corner, which I'll show you after this, but they're doing okay. This is my gigas, and the leaves kind of always look a little floppy. I guess the thing that I've noticed that might show me that it's not doing as well as it was before is that every new leaf, it would put out another little nub to show that there's like another new leaf on the way, but this one seems like it's slowing down in growth, probably because it's extremely dry. So I will take care of that today. The other plant that's not doing so well here is actually my variegated alocasia. It's very sad and yellow. This is the last leaf it has at this point. It had 2 beautiful leaves before I was neglecting it. So I'm a little bit sad about this, but I'm sure that it will sprout new leaves soon as I give it a good watering. That's what's happened in the past. And if it doesn't, I actually have a little baby version of this that also might not be doing well at this point, but it did give me a little shooting a while ago, and I've been monitoring that, but honestly, I don't remember the last time I watered it, so it's probably dead. This might be dead too. I'm not too devastated about it. While I do like this plant, it wasn't my favorite, so it's fine. Sometimes it's time to go. Here's kind of a telltale sign that there isn't enough water in the plant. You can see that the leaves are kind of curling inwards, and while most of them are not yellowing too much because this plant is already a little bit yellow, all the leaves are curling, and that's a clear sign that this needs more water. They should uncurl and mostly recover when I give it water, but sometimes the plant leaves never fully recover, and that's okay. And the last plant I want to show you in this section is this Mexicanum that I cut and propagated. You can see the initial cut right here, but you'll notice that the air roots on the top are getting really long. They're really trying to look for moisture. This happens to my Monstera plants as well. When it's starting to miss out on the water in the soil, it tries to find other places to get water, and this is why you normally use like a moss pole or some sort of bark or stick that might give it something to hang on to and get more moisture. Obviously, there's nowhere for this plant to get more water besides me. So I need to water this, and it's doing fine otherwise. This plant is quite sturdy. But it definitely is showing me that, like, even though the leaves are doing okay, it needs more water. Now, aside from not watering my plants, the other thing that I haven't been doing maintenance-wise is pest maintenance. So I have been neglecting my plants with my, once a month, once every few weeks spraying of neem oil to protect them from any pests that come inside. It's summer right now, and I've noticed that there have been aphids still hanging out on some plants, mostly outside, but some of them sometimes are able to come in through the windows and find a new yummy houseplant to latch onto. So that's something that I haven't been doing a good job with, especially with this guy. It's a variegated Mickey Mouse alocasia, and this is the newest leaf. The older leaves actually fell off after they browned and died because this plant is inflicted with spider mites. You can see them actually. You can kind of see the little black specks inside the plant. And here are some more plants that I've been neglecting. This leaf is shriveling up. It's one of the older leaves, so I'm okay with it, but I would be sad if the biggest leaf got wrecked. So I'm gonna water this today. This leaf is falling off of my white knight, but it's kind of expected. I actually took a bunch of clippings off of this, which I'll show you in a little bit, but it's pretty normal for leaves to drop off every now and then. I usually like to take the stem part of it off too, but it's not coming off easily yet, so I will leave that for now. I'll probably clip it with my shears. The other plant that's not doing well here is this fern, and it has a bunch of little browning leaves now. This is a kokodama. This one's the easiest to water. I literally just dump water in here and it soaks it up. The other plant I've neglected is this cat plant. It's food time, and they're going to be bothering me for the rest of the video, so you'll hear them in the background. There's 3 of them going. And they're hailing the refrigerator god for their food. Okay, and the last part of my house that has a lot of plants is my grow restroom. So I'm in my restroom right now, which is why it's a little more echoey and the lighting's not as good. But I wanted to show you all the plants in this room because it's kind of an update on the plants that I have imported from Indonesia. Some of you were asking in my prior videos, how are the plants doing? Are they still alive? And honestly, I haven't been taking as good care of them as I should have, but they've all been here in this grow room, isolated from the rest of my collection. The temperature is warmer here, it's a little bit more humid for the most part, and it gets very good light because of the grow lights. So I'm going to start with my green spaces collection. This is the top row that I have right now, and you'll notice my verrucosum and my plummonii, they're all super droopy right now. I've actually been watering these fairly often, maybe once every few days, and it's just about time for me to water them again. They look super dramatic, but wait till you see them right after I water them. I will show you at the end of this video, but they really perk right up. They're kind of like begonias from what I've noticed, where they're like really dramatic, and then you give them water and they're really happy again. So normally I don't let it droop this much, but that's just how it's gonna be today. If you notice the other ones though behind it, so we have this painted lady that has put out at least 3 new leaves since. The new leaves are a bit more yellow because it's getting more variegated, and I think the variegation for this plant is more yellow than white. So that's just what it looks like, and it's doing very well. It's growing out. I can actually probably chop it up pretty soon if I wanted to, but none of my friends are really looking for this plant, so I'm not in a rush. The other plant that's doing really well is my clarinervium. I posted about this on my Instagram, but this is actually my very first fluorescence that I've seen coming from my plants, and it came pretty quickly. I don't know how to make this turn into seeds. I don't have anything else to cross with it, but it's pretty cool, and I'm excited. So this apparently does a bit better with less water, it seems like. And here's my gracile. It's doing about the same as it was before. There's a new leaf coming out here, but it's hanging in there. It's a little bit dramatic and drooping right now, but not as much as the other ones. But all my Green Spaces ID plants are doing well. The only one that isn't doing well actually is down here. It's my Epidpremnum variegated. And it's lost most of its leaves at this point, and I don't really know what to do to make it happy. Like, I think that the leaves just naturally droop a little bit, but it hasn't put out any new growth, and it's mostly just been slowly losing leaves. The soil still has some moisture, although it's fairly dry. I don't know what to do about it, but I'm just gonna keep hoping that it holds these 2 leaves and puts out new growth soon. Now, some of you were asking why I like to water propagate over any other propagation method, and the biggest reason actually is that I literally just drop the plant in and forget about it, and then I refill the water when it looks either kind of gross or when it's running out. We have pretty good water quality here in Berkeley. It's called like hetchy water, or it's something kind of like that. But basically, like, we can drink our tap water no problem. It's pretty good. I don't think it's that chlorinated, and so I actually don't even leave the water out to evaporate the chlorination. I just immediately put my plants into the water, and I've had no problems with it. So one example is this Mexicanum. It's running low on water. Actually, I like to have it all the way filled so that the roots up here also get water. You can see that it's floating above the water, although it's technically connected to the water down here. But I probably haven't filled this up in about 2 months, and I filled it up to here probably, so it's sort of gone down. I'm sure it would do better if I was better about the water, and actually at this point I really should put it in soil, because I don't want the water roots to be overdeveloped, because then there's not enough. Basically it becomes very dependent on water and has a harder time transitioning into soil. So the way that I've neglected this plant though, even though it's meant to be neglected, is that it really is time for me to pot this up, and I have been delaying that as long as possible. I mean, honestly, they're doing okay. This plant is a Warocqueanum from Bogana pot plants. These 2 leaves were a goner. Like, I was expecting this to go. So it's just unfortunate that it's happening right now, and it's also happening before this leaf has had a chance to come out. So I'm hoping that this leaf will come out soon and that I didn't fully kill this plant. If you want to know whether or not your plant is still alive, I mean, this one's clearly alive. It's still green. If it looks kind of not very green, what you can do is you can scratch it very gently with your fingernail, and if you scratch the surface of it and there's like green or moisture underneath the first top layer, that means it is still alive. This is a trick that I learned from my local nursery, East Bay Nursery. They basically just went up to a tree that we thought was dead, and they scratched at it a little bit and saw it expose a little bit of green underneath, and that was a sign that it was still somehow alive, even though that tree had been not watered for a very long time. All the droopiness actually is fine. It might be a little bit scary to see how sad the plants look, especially if you've also been sad and you haven't had time to take care of yourself, so you also haven't had time to take care of your plants. But plants are resilient like we are, and they will perk back up. And even if you lose all the leaves on your beautiful plant, as long as the root system is doing okay and it's still alive, and you, like I said, you can use that fingernail method if you're not really sure, your plant will come back. And if it doesn't, there are more plants out there. So just wanted to mention that before I show you the next part of this video, which will be all the plants thriving, hopefully, after I give them some water. So one last thing, I wanted to show you all that when you have plants that are in desperate need of water, you should give it a really good thorough watering. I like to do that at my sink. I will run it for like 30 seconds or so. You really want to make sure every single part of the soil is getting water and is getting remoisturized. And should be good. So sometimes to try to conserve water, I will pour the water that I just, like the water dripping out, above another plant so I can reuse the water a little bit. You can also have it pouring straight into another bucket to then reuse the water.